Hi. It's a twofer day, I think, if Matt posts these at the same time. I am lucky enough to talk to a couple of our game masters back to back. We did Preston just a little bit ago, and now I'm sitting down with the amazing Rom for another
Amazing, Rob.
get to know the GM chat. Um, I'm going to have to watch the time on this one because I think we may just talk and talk and talk. So let's jump right into it and not waste any time.
Let's do that. Sounds good,
Okay.
Melinda.
So how long have you been playing tabletop RPGs? That's usually how we start our interviews, I've noticed.
Sure. I started playing in 1983 with Advanced Dungeons & Dragons First Edition. And since that time, the only break I took was from about 88 to 93 while I was serving in the U.S. Army during the Gulf War. And once I got out of the military and got squared away back into civilian life, I slowly started picking things up on the fringe and began to hit it really hard around 96, 97.
Now, I'm curious. First off, I feel like it always sounds kind of trite, but I really do want to sincerely thank you for your service and your time in the Army, because even in times of peace, that can be a bit of a hardship, and it's appreciated, that sacrifice.
Well, that's very kind of you, Melinda. Thank you.
I'm also curious, though, because I know a lot of guys that started gaming in the military. Was that something, given where you were, that just wasn't going on?
So you would think that that would have been the case, because especially in the MOS that I was working in at the time, there was a lot of eggheads and intellectual types involved with this MOS. However, no, because we were all very early in our 20s and coming from diverse backgrounds, I think the only commonality that we had at that time was our love of beer and loud music. So the bulk of my military downtime, R&R, was spent pursuing those two passions and playing a lot of travel softball on a military team. So we were stationed in Germany, so we had a lot of time spent at beer fests and Oktoberfest in Munich.
And real beer.
With real beer. Thank you for saying that. With real beer. Yeah, it was a quite enjoyable time. But yeah, I find it interesting. I should note that, when we think about the differences from the Grognard days that I started in to where we're at today, with 5th edition being pretty much out of the closet, out of the basement, and pop culture at this point, to see the changes. I mean, there's even programs that what their whole focus of these nonprofits is to get gaming material and ship it to soldiers overseas. So we've come a long way with that, and I'm grateful that to see that full swing from the demonic scare in the 80s, right when I started, to it just being not only accepted, but like I said, pop culture and rather common these days.
Yeah. So you've been playing for a while. When did you come across Call of Cthulhu? I'm guessing it was after you got back to the States.
That's true. I was aware of it back in the 80s, but the group I was playing in, and I was so inexperienced that all we played was AD&D. I've always been a fan of horror, the genre. Had not read Lovecraft until, to be very honest, I don't know that I can say I really fell into Call of Cthulhu or Lovecraft until probably 10 years ago, and dove in a little bit. Was familiar with Cthulhu, but started reading. Got a book, picked up a book with the collected works, started that, and just fell in love with the verbosity of his text and his stories.
The verbosity.
So for Call of Cthulhu, I dabbled in it, but when I hit it, when it became like a passion, when I found out that it was my preferred gaming system, would have been when 7th edition was released. That's when it hit me, and eyes went open, and I realized, man, I really love this system and want to participate in it heavily.
I've run a lot more since 7th edition, but it was 7th edition that opened up the ability to run at cons for me, and that's part of it. So
what was it you felt that opened up, that allowed you to feel more comfortable running it at cons?
Well, I don't even know that it was 7th edition. I'm supposed to be asking the questions here. But I joined the Cult of Chaos.
Okay,
And Todd
sure.
kept putting out requests. Gee, I can't believe last year just doesn't seem like it should count. It didn't happen. But 4 years ago, he kept putting out requests in the newsletter for GMs for Origins. And finally, I asked my husband if he minded if I disappeared for a week. I said, nothing may come of this. He's like, I don't care. So it showed up in the next newsletter, and I sent off an email to Mr. Matt McLeod. And that's how I started running at cons. And so I love 7th because it's opened up this whole world for me. 7th edition in the Call of Chaos. And, I get to meet, and now I get to talk and chat and question all you guys. I love it.
It's been pleasing to see the resurgence of Chaosium as a company, a publishing house. They were really on the brink, as you're aware, and hopefully some of our viewers, don't know this, so that I'm not being redundant. But when their 7th edition Kickstarter was in its 11th hour and about to die, and the old team came back in, I think that was the watershed moment for Chaosium. And anyone that follows the industry beyond just a casual gamer will know that not only is Chaosium corrected the ship, but they're on a meteoric rise. They're the number 2 system now for a lot of online virtual games, according to the org group, which is Roll20. So they've surpassed Pathfinder as the number 2 most played system. So yeah, I think we hit the boat early on, right when we needed to, you and I, Melinda. And I'm grateful to be involved.
I like how approachable the guys at Chaosium are too. Actually, if you run into them at a con or something, I fangirl a little bit. I'm still like, oh my God, Rick Mines or Paul Fricker, or Mike Mason. But they really are very approachable. They're fun to talk to.
They're down to earth, right? There's no. I don't get any pretentiousness when I, talk to them at the booth or happen to run into them. I agree with you.
And they're grateful for their players and the people who buy their products. They appreciate us, and we appreciate. I think it's reciprocal.
Absolutely.
I also like their corporate structure, for lack of a better word. The fact that they really don't. They have a corporate headquarters on paper, but they don't have a physical building that is just Chaosium, which I think is far more sustainable. So they can turn out good products, but they don't have to constantly churn them out trying to make a buck.
Agreed. Agreed. I think all of their supplements for 7th edition have been well received, in that, unlike other systems where they'll put out a splat book, 2 times a year, and it just becomes, not only does it become bloated, but it just becomes pieces of the game that no one's ever going to play, but completists feel like they have to purchase the book. I don't get that sense with Chaosium. It seems like to me that they're trying to work really hard to put out quality material, and those that are involved with the Miskatonic, what's it called?
Miskatonic Repository.
I think they've learned firsthand as well that even those third-party people writing scenarios or supplements for Call of Cthulhu 7th edition are kind of being held to a fairly rigid, I don't want to say rigid, that's the wrong adjective, to a fairly well-defined, well-defined, high-quality standard. So,
yeah, I totally agree. Of course, this is way off topic, but still fascinating. That's the problem with these interviews. I could sit and talk to each of you guys at least an hour. Because it's so much fun to sit and ask questions and pick your brains.
So far I'm doing a great job of my plan, Melinda, was when I started this, was to try to change the subject away from me and talk about something unrelated to me for 25 minutes. And we only have 5 minutes. Oh, we've got to go. Well, shoot. And I want to maintain that mystery. That
I am probably about to embarrass you, but I have been lucky enough, for our listeners' knowledge, to play in a couple of online games with you, including the never-ending Aliens demo, Charity of the Gods, to which I refer people to Seth Skorkowski's review, because that was the game. But you're good. I think
Oh,
anybody
thank
lucky
you.
enough to sit down at one of your tables anywhere is really in for a good time. And yeah, lucky. I really enjoy when you GM.
Well, coming from you, that means a lot. Thank you, my friend. It took a long time to get where I felt comfortable running not only Call of Cthulhu, but I also run weekly OSR games, and I also run other Cthulhu systems, Tiny Cthulhu, Cthulhu Hack. I have to look. I've got so many different flavors of Mythos rule books that I sometimes forget.
Wow.
Um, so it took me a long time to get where I felt comfortable running as a GM.
Yeah.
And what was the defining moment was when I realized that it was okay to quote unquote go off script. I don't do a lot of writing myself personally, but I will take the intent or the seed of a scenario. And that Alien RPG scenario that we played through was a good example. And kind of focus on the highlights or the points that the author originally wanted, to get through in the
Yeah.
scenario. And I work really hard at trying to be mindful, to not railroad, and to be quick on my feet to try to adapt to what the players do,
Mhm.
and not be afraid to, if the players come up with a crazy idea and it sounds really cool, or it's like I want to see where this goes, not being afraid to just take whatever you kind of had planned in your head or what you see written on the sheet and let that just fall away, and let's see where this goes with the players, and adapt those clues that we need to make sure they find to continue the investigation,
Uh,
or the mystery.
I have
And
not read that scenario, so I know where we deviated from what was written, but you did. You hit every high point, everything that needed to happen to get us towards the conclusion, but you let us play around so much. And I realized, we played like what, 20 hours or something, if we added all up, because there were some breaks in there because of life. But I think I enjoyed everybody's company over that length of time, but I
yeah,
also enjoyed how much freedom and exploration we got over that time period. Because the book kind of, I don't want to use the term railroading, but it definitely is. It shoves you straight through from point A to point B. You can go left or right a little bit here and there, and you just let us play and have a great time.
I would say that as a DM, it doesn't matter, game master, how long you've been in that role. If you're a forever GM or if you're new to it, never stop. Never allow yourself to be so closed-minded that you're not willing to continue to learn. And that sounds, that could sound rather pretentious of me to say that, but even during that game, Seth Skorkowski, who those of us that are in Call of Cthulhu gaming know that name, yeah, we eagerly await every video that he publishes on YouTube.
Yeah.
But he gave some great advice, and he wasn't. I can't remember if he gave it in the video review of that module or that scenario. But something he said sticks with me ever since that day, and it's don't forget to make your game cinematic. And it's, to me, I dwelled on that. I ruminated, and I realized that should be true for any game, regardless of genre, fantasy, sci-fi, soups. Whether it's a serious game like Call of Cthulhu,
Mm-hmm.
or if it's a pulp game like Pulp Cthulhu, it doesn't matter. Always try to make your sessions cinematic, so that the players feel energized at the end, not at the beginning, right?
Oh, yeah. And we did. So,
Well, I was grateful to have you and the players we had. We had a good group there,
we had a really good group. We did.
and
Yeah, I was.
I'm excited for our Monday night group too, Melinda. I'm really excited for that group. The chemistry. It's hard when you're
Yeah,
playing online and you're meeting, especially now that we're post pandemic. Well, we're in that arena. I wouldn't say we're
yeah.
completely done with it. Uh,
Pre-post.
Pre-post, thank you. We're pre-post the pandemic, and hopefully all of us and listening to this will have an opportunity to go back to face-to-face gaming sooner rather than later. But one of the things that I've been grateful for is I've met a lot of people online now. That's how you
Mhm.
and I met. And as a man, who's 51 years old and not hip anymore, I've learned to embrace the fact and accept it with an open heart that some of these people I met online, like you, are truly now friends. And
Yeah.
that I enjoy spending time with them, whether we're gaming or not. Uh, but I've been very fortunate to have players that have gelled as groups. Total strangers that come together. Uh, the session that you spoke to previously, Alien RPG, that was one, and another was our group on alternating Monday evenings. That group
Yeah.
they gelled immediately, and that makes it fun for everyone when a player can get engaged, and sometimes that really helps. At least me as a GM, maybe others feel the same way. It keeps me engaged too. On those nights where, oh man, my energy level might be low, but I know I've
Yeah.
got to pick it up. Nope, you guys are always there to pick me up. So kudos to players. You guys keep the GMs inspired.
I love that when it happens at a convention table.
Sure.
Sometimes now once I had 5 players, so 4 of them were friends who always get together to play games at Origins. The 5th wasn't, but you wouldn't have known it within 10 minutes into the game. But that's the only time I've had a table that pretty much knew everybody when they sat down. And yet, it's going to be a good game when they sit down and they just they're all friends at least for that 4-hour slot.
Yeah, they're not reticent. Their banter's good, and if you can have them laughing, I mean, a true laugh at something silly in game, out of game, a joke, or if you can get them to laugh hard sooner than later, I think
Yeah.
that's a good indicator that you're about to have a very special session.
Now, do you have that? Maybe I shouldn't ask. It's a loaded question. Do you have that happen a lot at cons, or?
I've had it happen several times. I don't, but I haven't had it. I try to get it at every session, but am I
Yeah.
successful? No. Sometimes my goofy humor or what is funny to me is not funny to the group, so they just kind of
Yes.
give me the dead fish stare.
I've
But
gotten that.
it's always the quiet players, right? The ones that don't really participate, or not, they're not the vocal alpha voice of the group. But at
Yeah.
the end of the session, as the players are leaving your table and thanking you, the quiet one will come up and say, I had such a good time. Those to me are probably the most meaningful uh,
Yeah.
uh, comments. Feedback is someone that you think is just not enjoying it, not getting it, and then they just come in and say, look man, that was awesome. It's like, oh wow, like, that's very kind of you to say. I appreciate that. So
Yeah. Yeah. I'm surprised my head fits through the door by the end of the con, but maybe that says where my self-esteem is when I go into the con, that it still does. Because the feedback from the players is just
let me ask you something, Melinda.
energizing. Yeah.
Even the sessions I run with, like the groups that you've participated in, and I have a weekly COC group Tuesday nights that we've been going for years. I
Mhm.
think we're on our 5th year. Um,
Mhm.
Even those, and these are people I've known for almost 20 years, some of them. Even those sessions, when I finish them, some nights if I feel like I came off flat or there wasn't enough energy, I actually will lose sleep worrying about that. Like, oh, what could I have done different? Where did I lose them? Where did I lose my mojo?
Yeah.
Have you ever had those moments?
I have actually. Yeah, I have, because I feel like I was just so out of it. I couldn't keep everybody on task or something. Or yeah.
Sure. That's the flip side, so we're talking about all the great things that players, and that make us feel better about ourselves, which then empowers us to be better GMs. But at the same time, I still think that the adage "you're your own worst critic" really hits hard on GMs, right?
Oh,
Those GMs that like we said earlier, open-minded and can think critical about how they did. Did they put on a fun session? Did they keep everyone engaged? And I know some GMs have different table rules. A big one that kind of goes around now, both virtually and at cons, is no electronics. And I always tell players, both virtually and face to face, if you want to surf, surf. I'm not. It's not going to bother me. It's not, because if I it becomes almost a challenge, where I want to step up my game to the point where they don't want to be on their phone when it's not their turn in combat, or they're a more passive player and they're letting the alpha players dictate what the group does next. If I can't get that person engaged during the game and they're lost on their phone, I don't blame that player. I say, okay, what could I have done different to try to keep that person engaged?
Now, I stay fully engaged during these interviews because I think it would be distracting and seem rude if I didn't. But when I'm playing, I'm busy doing something. My hands have to be busy. And if
Sure.
they're not, then my brain wanders more from the game because I start to. Keeping busy helps keep me focused. So I try not to judge other people. Also, my first Origins, I wound up getting a text message from my daughter midpoint in the game. Let me know my husband was in ICU again. It was nothing super serious. He was developing not arrhythmia, tachycardia maybe. And if they give you the drugs to balance out your heart rate and your BP, then you spend the night in the hospital.
Sure.
But I'm mid game my first Origins and find out my husband's back in the ICU. We just had our first go round the week before. So I keep my phone nearby and I will surreptitiously look at, and I apologize to players every so often, I'll glance down because if I have a text message from a family member, I'm going to read it.
I believe that you can go on Reddit and see that you find the sub that's RPG horror stories, right? And every once in a while, I'll read some of those. But I believe overall that the younger generation, or the younger people coming into the game, into RPGs in general these days, are a lot more conscientious about that, understanding that balance, right? And where back when the RPGs were just starting to hit a larger audience, when not only D&D but first edition AD&D came out, and then I think then we probably had a lot of people playing that for lack of social awareness were a lot more could be much harsher on the GMs, and feeling a sense of entitlement. And I think I give credit to 5th edition for this, only because it's so massively large now, of making players aware that they're part of the story as well. Their characters are, and it's not the days of players sitting down expecting the GM to lead them through, and kind of prompt them through a story, I think are fading away, and that's a good thing, because now players feel engaged and feel like they have agency.
Yeah. What are you running in Origins?
What am I running at Origins?
Yes, I'm not going to let you completely get away with not talking about yourself any.
So I think at Origins I'm going to be running strictly Call of Cthulhu. I'm not branching out into the other systems. I think the highlight for me, I wanted to do this 2 years ago, pre-COVID, is David's. Oh, I'm going to mispronounce his last name. I have to look it up. David Skolowski. He wrote Sunspots. I should grab the book and show you. He wrote Sunspots, which is a Call of Cthulhu 7th edition scenario that's been out for several years, and it was kind of brought from an older manuscript that he'd worked on in pre-7th edition days. That's going to be my big one, and I'm going to run that as 2 4-hour sessions, so it's going to be an 8-hour game to get through this lengthy scenario. So that's the highlight. But I will be running the standard fare of Chaosium Con scenarios for Origins and Gen Con.
Do you know which one? Which one's you gonna run? I'm gonna run the Aurora Dawn.
So I'm running Why Is That Rabbit Staring at Me?
Yes.
I think the other one is Demon Reyes.
Yeah. The Western.
I'm running. Yeah. I'm excited. I'm a big fan of what is it? The Weird West.
Yeah.
I'm also running The Derelict that Sandy Peterson wrote for free RPGJ 4 years ago now. I've never run that one, and they had one slot open, so I'm going to be running that at Gen Con. So Origins, I'll be running Sunspots, 2 sessions at 8 hours, and then Why Is That Rabbit Staring at Me, Demenres. What else am I running? I thought I had written it down because I didn't even know. I was like, okay, what did Todd assign me to, or what is
Yeah.
he giving us? There's one that I haven't received the scenario yet, and I believe Todd said it's coming out in July, and the name of it escapes me, Melinda. I'm sorry.
Oh, it's okay. So you're running straight classic Cthulhu for the most part, or is
Yeah, I'm going to be running a little bit of pulp, a little bit of Down Darker Trails, the Western setting. And yeah, otherwise it's going to be, I believe, classic era, or I don't think I'm running any modern.
Okay, Sunspot what's Sunspots?
So Sunspots.
Is it classic?
It is. It's set in the winter of 1927, if I remember correctly, in the Boston area. So it's very much falls into the wide periphery of, starts at least in Boston, but quickly moves into Lovecraft country, and set during the classic period. I don't know so for me, my favorite era by far is classic. I think it's fun. I like that some of the complexities of the modern world aren't there, and it makes me feel it just kind of makes me feel like it's a little bit special, more than a modern, or and I know a lot of people prefer modern or subgenres of that, like Delta Green, and I look forward to running Delta Green. I have the books. I just I need to finally get to reading them, but sometimes I just find it more enjoyable for me to GM back in those days, the golden era, or the silver age, where you weren't constantly bombarded with media, or you weren't constantly connected to everyone around you in the entire world. So things were a little bit more obtuse, a little bit more abstract, and it required more effort on the investigator's part to get to the answers they need to proceed. So
just Google foo.
Exactly.
Yeah. I agree. I like classic, and I'm also a big fan, although I haven't run it with 7th edition yet, of Gaslight. I love Gaslight.
I've heard great things about that era, that setting. I know a lot of people are really into it. In fact, one of the Patreons I follow, put out a poll and get, what genre or what era should they write the next scenario in, and it by far Gaslight, dominated that poll results. So
I think that's probably what I ran the most of when I was doing 4th edition. And I would occasionally run Call of Cthulhu because it seemed to be what the people I was playing with preferred. It doesn't help that I let my husband make a street urchin who got their hands on dynamite, but
dynamite and Call of Cthulhu don't mix well.
Oh, it mixed pretty well, actually. I was still an experienced GM. That's all I can say. I've learned.
I think an era that I'd like to run, and that I'm actually looking, I've made tentative plans to try to schedule for 2022, is Dark Ages. I would like to do that. There's something appealing to me about the Middle Ages, or, knights in armor fighting off mythos creatures, and, trying to save the world, or what they felt was the world at the time, right? I think there could be some fantastic gameplay in that era. So
back when I was still a college student, I was a history major, and most of my classes, I think I had all but 2 of the medieval history classes then offered here at OU. And one of those was because I had no interest in the English Constitution whatsoever. I guess it was a bear of a class. So I like that. I also like that time period. I know why we call it the Dark Ages. And so, but I have issues with that because it wasn't really dark. But,
sure.
But I know the thinking and kind of that setting. Yeah, I think that would be great for horror. Actually, the search for Brian Borio from 2 years ago, the con scenario was a Dark Age.
I
Interesting.
think that's the first time I heard of it. And I've been familiar, the books out there, and I think they've released a new edition. Another Chaosium title, if we're talking about that era, that I'd like to get involved with is the new Pendragon. When I was a wee lad and, early teens and read, it's just fine. Just learning about Stephen King and starting to read Stephen King, I was equally, the genre I chose to read was science fiction, but I really got into Arthurian tales and lore, and even to this day, it's still, I can't turn down a halfway decent Arthurian movie or
Yeah.
story. And Excalibur is like one of the best movies ever in my mind, and I'm really excited for the Green Knight to come out and watch that. So I think that would be a fun era to run some mythos in. I think the more you game as a GM, you want to branch out, and you should probably try to branch out and run in different eras or different rules. That's like pulp or even down darker trails, that Western. I think there's a lot that can be learned running these different settings and styles to help make you a better GM, and I think players would also benefit from trying that out from time to time.
Yeah, it keeps you from getting stale. Keeps the brain thinking.
It's true.
All right, so we know what you're running at Origins. What should people expect from a ROM run game?
I'm not a rules lawyer, so if one of the players knows the rules better, great. Otherwise, everything I'm doing is focused on allowing the players to have agency and giving them the pieces of the puzzle, as it were, and from that point, letting them decide in what order or in what sequence they want to put those pieces together to create that final image. So I'm very relaxed at the table as a GM. I don't take myself serious. I'm not a GM that feels like it breaks the mood of the game if we have an out of game joke or something happens and I make a reference. I don't anything that makes the players feel at ease or helps bring humor. So hopefully everyone will have a good time and appreciate the fact that it is a little bit more sandboxy or open-ended, even in a 4-hour scenario, which Matt continues to beat me up brutally about this, but I can actually run a scenario in 4 hours. It's just when it's my game, I choose not to let it grow organically. So
I think I teased you a little bit too.
Yeah, lots of humor at my table, and lots of, well, let's try it. Let's just see how that goes. Take your idea, and the group agrees that's what they want to do. Then let's roll it up and see what happens. One thing that I do that is unique to me, and I'm not boasting on that, I'm just saying I haven't seen other GMs do this, is it's specific to Call of Cthulhu. If a player rolls an extreme success or critical success, I let them take over the plot. I'll kind of seed, give them the immediate results, and I'll say, you tell me what happens next. And it's interesting, Linda, because players tend to grow uncomfortable in that moment because they're caught off guard. They don't know, oh wait, and then those that pick up on it, then they don't go. They always feel like they might be going too far. And I think I've only ever had one instance where a player went too far, and I said, no, we're gonna have to reel that back in. But that keeps the game invigorating, not only for me, because now I've got to quickly adapt to that plot point that they've just injected into the game. But also, again, it furthers the agency of the player, to feel like it's their story, because it really is their story. I'm just there to be an arbitrator.
And I can honestly say you do a good job of rolling with it. And this is how my sister in the Monday Night Masks, or how my character in the Monday Night Masks of Nyarlathotep game gained a sister.
That's right. That is absolutely right. Yeah, and in fact, that was another player kind of, I think, prompting you, hey, don't you have a sister? Oh, let's go adjust that backstory.
Sister, what sister and what tragic thing just happened to her that got referenced? Let me think here. Yeah. It was fun though.
Yeah. So,
Um,
in a roundabout way, to be concise, lots of humor and hopefully lots of player agency. You know, would be what you could expect from my sessions.
I can only imagine what it's like in person because I had never played a game with you when we did Alien. Matt asked me because he knew I kind of wanted to play in a game Seth was playing, and I'd never played Alien. So if you've never played Call of Cthulhu, I can tell you Rom is good at explaining the rules because he was very good with all of us because we had never played Alien.
Hmm.
I
Well,
think
I think
Seth had read some of it, right?
he had, and actually, I'd never even run Alien before that
Yeah.
session. That was just me saying, you know what, I want to try it out. Do I know all the rules? Heck no, but let's just kind of go and see what happens. You know.
And it worked really well. And you I think were really good at setting the scene and giving us, you gave us agency, but you also gave us direction
Hmm.
um, as to what we could do, directions we could go and possibilities. And so I assume players will have a great time at your table at Origins.
Yeah, I think one thing I'd like to add then, Melinda, is for those players that might be listening or going to Origins or anyone listening, um, one other trait that I am very active with because it's something that I believe in very, very strongly, and I have personal connections to this is being inclusive at the table.
Yes.
Um, for what it's worth, I'm a big ardent supporter of LGBTQ plus, and I've been fortunate enough to have players sit down at the table, and at the end, I was very mindful. Hopefully, they because you run into all kinds of people, you run into all
Mm-hmm.
extremes, and trying to make sure everyone understands that they have a place at my table and therefore they have a voice at my table. So, and I give all credit to again the young generation, those that are just coming into gaming, because they are more understanding, in my opinion. So they didn't have to face a lot of the struggles that you and I did as older folk.
Girl
And
gamer.
yeah, and so I'm excited. I'm excited for that. To see that, I want to see more female gamers. I want to see more people of color gaming.
I would love to see more people of color at my tables.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
I get some women, and I definitely have space for more women. I think I've gotten some folks that were transgendered, and I think I'm worried I make them uncomfortable because I'm just so excited they're there. Because all those differences bring new things to my games too.
And that's the great part about it, right? When you're especially at a con, when you have people that don't know each other and they come from these diverse backgrounds.
Yeah.
For the most part, I've only ever once that I can remember had to stop a session at a con and let a player know that they were out of line. And this gentleman took it well, and he was a bit quiet after that, but it's
Only
good
one.
to know. Yeah, I'm grateful for that because that brings so much. It makes the game that much better, in my opinion. The more diverse the players are, whether it's ethnicity, sexual orientation, or both. So
I'm going to give a little plug here to Matt because Lurking Fears is his baby, and diversity, inclusivity are both very, very big things to the philosophy behind Lurking Fears. So I know at Origins we will have the Gamers Org does the ribbons for your badges, and so we will have ally and gamer badge ribbons for your badges for people to pick up in our gaming area. And we will also have pronoun ribbons, which gamers started 3 years ago. And then we were just chatting one night and wound up poking around online, and he's getting some diversity ribbons as well.
Nice.
For
Yeah.
our ribbons. So I know maybe I'll nudge Matt to put a link in the show notes for this, but I know if you buy any of the Lurking Fears merch, the profits that Matt would get are going into helping fund those things.
That's I'm excited to be part of that. Matt
Yeah.
and I, our friendship is in my opinion quite strong, and I love him like a brother. And
Yeah.
he and I've had some very meaningful and thoughtful conversations about this topic,
Yeah.
and I'm excited to see how well this is received. When people come in to play our games at Origins. I want to give Matt a bit of grief. I think I'm gonna have to post it on Facebook, call him out publicly. He's got some fantastic merchandise for Lurking Fears, really does. I'm excited to get some
Yeah.
of it soon. But damn it, I didn't find a hat. I wanted a Lurking Fears hat, and I can't find
Oh.
it. So I might have to give him some grief for that.
Okay, Matt, if you're listening, get on that. We need a hat.
Yeah, I need a ball cap, buddy. Definitely need
Um,
that.
and I know it's a topic that hits close to home for both he and I. I don't know about you, but
Yes, it does. A lot of Matt and I share that with our children. We both have children that identify as LGBTQ,
same here.
and we've had, like I said, we've had some very deep, meaningful conversations about that topic and the struggles our children have seen thus far in their lives, and what can we do to be more supportive for them.
I think mine have been lucky. The biggest struggle they have is their mother remembering the correct pronouns.
Yeah, that caught me off at first too. A lot of, and I think I think my daughter just changed her pronouns to her, them, and I've gotten really good. I have transgender players in two different games, two different people, and
cool.
yeah, they and they actually went through their I'm not sure the correct terminology. They went through their transformation.
Mm-hmm.
I hope that's right. I'm not trying to be offensive. After they started gaming with me, and the very first time there was a slip up, and I felt horrible, referred to a person by their previous gender, and it really hurt me as much as it hurt them. And I think those are the type of lessons that we learn, not just with gaming, but in life. The ones that really sting us or hurt us are the ones that we remember and take with us down the path through life. And it's to the point where now it's just become second nature for me. So it's not anything. It's easier, quite easy now to, once someone shares the pronouns, to know. But when you're excited and running a con game, for example,
yes.
My brain's going. I might slip up and refer to the gender of the person as I see them. And
If I don't know,
yeah,
that's all I can do. I'm getting much better at doing they, them in general, but yeah.
We've done a great job, you and I, of talking about pretty much anything other than myself, and I'm very, very happy.
I think I got some stuff out of you that was perfect.
Yeah, if there's still anyone listening to me babble on, then thank you for that.
Yeah, we should probably wrap this up. We've gone over, but there's some people that are just worth the extra time. Well, I think everybody's worth the extra time, but
well, you and I have a friendship outside of this interview, so it's easy for us to just sit down and start gabbing and gabbing.
And I'm grateful to the pandemic for that, because I've gotten to know so many people that sat at maybe the next table when I was at Origins GMing, but I didn't get to know them there.
Exactly.
And thanks to the pandemic, I've gotten to play with a lot of you guys, and yeah, for that I'm grateful. That's one of the few things I think I can thank the pandemic for.
I agree, and I do remember seeing you at Origins, but I don't know that I ever spoke to you, and if I did and I forgot, I apologize. But I'm for the very much the same reasons you said. I'm very grateful that the pandemic allowed me to meet some of the people that have been on the periphery of my group. So
this will only be the third Origin, so, and I've only done one Gen Con.
Gen Con was a different beast because it's so much more hectic than Origins, in my opinion. So you and I might have sat next to each other, and I wouldn't have known it.
No.
No. So I think in closing, I'm going to share something that I'd like to share with you and Matt, and for the listeners. I have decided to pursue, and I've never done this, writing a scenario for the first time. I found that niche idea, and that's what always held me back. Was I lacked it in my own self
Mhm.
evaluation. I lacked the creativity to come up with something original. And I think I was trying too hard, and that was creating a block. But
Yeah.
I found something that was, I feel, original, and I'm sure if I ever have the pleasure of having Seth review it when it's completed, he'll probably point out how unoriginal it is. But I hope that's not the case. But the cool kids, they don't know it yet, but they're gonna be my play testers. So.
I am
Or
so
no,
excited.
I'm sorry, not the cool kids. I might include them, but what I meant to say was Two Wrenches, the original Two Wrenches group.
Juventus.
Yeah, that's the group I want to have run through this, because there's a lot of strong keepers that are in that group
Yeah.
and writers. So,
Well,
yep,
I'm going to say this to match your. You've stated it on. It's out there on the internet now. You got to do
it
it.
is. I know. That's why I did
I
it.
put mine on paper. I started 2 years ago working on a Call of Cthulhu scenario to run at Origins, and it intimidates me writing for Call of Cthulhu because you've got to know. You got to think ahead and make sure you've got all the seeds that can get tossed out there. But I'm running one of my own scenario of my own creation, and I am running an alien scenario of my own creation, which
Oh
I've only
wow!
started running alien. But I'm looking at the stuff and I'm going, this it's Chariot of the Gods is too long. Even if you run it as written, it's too long, I think. And I just didn't feel the one con scenario they sent Matt for me to check out. I'm like, I got an idea. Screw it. I'm going to write this. So
One thing I'd like to
they'll help me play test some
share
of it.
with you and our viewers, Melinda, is I've recently been running Mothership, which is a kind of a zine sci-fi horror game, and it's just a thin, book
Oh
of, I
yeah.
don't know, 45. But there's so much similarities in not only the feel of this game with aliens, but there's a couple rules that are spot on between the two, and I'm like, But what I was going to share about Mothership, and I highly recommend this to anyone that likes cosmic horror. This is this is like a scaled down version of Aliens. If you just want to jump out and do a pickup game, or you want a rules light game.
Mhm.
But one thing that that publisher did is they started putting out these trifold adventures. So the entire adventure is literally just on a trifold pamphlet.
Oh wow.
And for someone like me that likes to kind of set the scene and let the players run, this is absolutely perfect, because I can pick this up, and I tend to be a bit more fiddly. So maybe after a couple hours of reading it and coming up with some ideas, I can run this. And this is it. It has everything I need, all the details, everything. So I might try to pursue this in the future as well. But for Call of Cthulhu, like, let's just set out the highlights, as I said earlier in this rambling conversation, and then let the keepers run with it. So yeah, I'm pretty excited to participate in your game. I don't think I won't have time to play it, but I know you'll run it for me online,
Oh
and
yeah.
vice versa. Introduce my idea to the group, and get that published, and see how people like it. So
I'm so excited.
thank you. I'm excited for you too.
Thank you. Okay, and
Well,
I think
Melinda, this has been a great conversation. I want to thank you for joining us. I've had a great time talking to you tonight. I think we've learned quite a bit about you.
and you as well, surprisingly. Much to your attempts. I am really looking forward to seeing you in person at Origins.
Yeah,
And
it's going to be nice to hang out with you, my friend.
same here. Okay.
So.
Well then, I'm gonna wave at Matt. Oh, wait.